Got it? Okay. As I had mentioned that these are conversations. This is not me having to preach to you guys. This platform is created for men to be able to voice out their burning issues. And from there, we create, we'll find a solution as to how best we can move forward. So when you're talking of men's rights sounds to be like a very heavy language or different language from what one is expecting to hear. And that is because we're so used to women's rights, everything about women empowerment. Because I was even looking at the Constitution when it talks about gender. It addresses more on the female side of things, whereby women get to be more recognized and have to be more empowered or given more attention to be able to say they feel welcomed or they feel okay in the space. Now, that for me, it gave me a bit of concern because this men's issues, it's not located to a particular state or country. It's something that is happening globally. And with the little bit of research that I found, there are cases of domestic violence that do take place globally, not only in a certain country. And it's men who are being also abused in that case. Not to say women aren't, but men get to be abused. And such cases are hardly reported. Such cases are hardly taken serious even by law, because for men, then the question would be, what law supports me in the Constitution? At what part in the Constitution can I refer to? It's only about the human rights, that I'm human and I need to be respected. I've got my rights as a human, but not necessarily as a man, unlike women. Now, that somehow has taken some power from our African men. It has taken some authority from African men. It has taken respect away from them, because men not having clarity on their rights within the environment they are and within their countries, that has made it very unbearable for them to even action any abuse that they come across. You look at the cases that happen of emotional abuse, and emotional abuse is not only based on family. Specifically in this case, we're talking about emotional abuse from partner to partner. Now, and on that note, when a man is being emotionally abused, it's taken to be accepted that no, it's okay, you're a man, you have to be strong and man up and swallow the pill. Emotional abuse goes a very long way. You find that most men, they end up being the quiet men that they were not supposed to be. They end up being the introverts that they were not supposed to be. Or on the flip side of the coin, they end up being violent because they're trying to defend their egos. The ego goes high, and then the next thing they then be something or another animal that one was never expecting. Now, starting from the emotional abuse and being provoked in certain ways and certain words from the next partner, then leads to physical abuse. Not every man is able to control their emotions to the level of saying, let me not raise the hand, or let me not be physically abusive to the partner or to the person that is attacking me. Now, when I mentioned that the abuse of the emotional abuse is not only coming from, I said first, it's coming from the partner. Now I'm looking at the bigger picture, whereby even at the working environment, you find that if you are a male person and you are being abused emotionally by your colleagues, maybe you find that your senior is a female counterpart, and you find that you are experiencing this emotional abuse, it makes it very difficult for you to even complain or lay a complaint with the HR or the relevant institutions within that particular company. Then you are being seen to be a weak man, or don't know how to manage your issues. And again, coming to family, when that happens and then you have to address this issue with family, it becomes an issue of, you have been taught to be a man. A man must put their foot down. A man must not be weak and soften and all that. So now you find that it then produces men who are bottling things up. They get now affected physically. Physically, that leads to some men having to have issues of blood pressure, diabetes, or the worst would be heart attack, because they cannot handle the pressure that they are facing at that particular time. Now, when I'm talking of men's right in that particular aspect, there is a gap there to say men don't have their rights, not just only from the government, even the society has created that platform where men don't have rights to be able to stand or to defend themselves in a way that they would be able to feel suitable and it can resolve issues. The next one would then be the physical abuse. Physical abuse, mainly, it evolves or it starts from the domestic violence or within the next partner that one may be. The physical abuse also becomes an issue for men to be able to address or even talk about, because such cases, when they get to be reported, they are not taken seriously by the law. And that is because it goes back to the fact that there's no constitutional rights, or to say these are the rights for men. If a man were to be beaten up by a female counterpart, this is what should happen. So, which now leaves men to be in a state of having to swallow or having to take in the beatings from the next partner. And what happens with that? The person gets to be taking in and taking in and taking in. At one day, it happens that they can no longer take in. And then what happens? Then the lion roars. When the lion roars, and then they end up acting otherwise. And immediately when they act otherwise, now it's been transferred to say, men are violent, and if ever then where they happen to hurt their female counterpart, then it's easier when they go to the police, and then the police will be like, man, how happened that you beat your woman? You don't beat a woman, without even knowing that the woman has been beating the man more than 5 times and the man has been stomaching it, but because it happens that now the man gets to do it once, because it has been bottling up in his body and he didn't know how best to deal with it at the time. Now that takes me to say, the law doesn't really give the platform for men to say, this is what you need to do as a man if such things were to happen. Because even if they do report the case, it will be just in one of those X files or that file that gets to be put there. No one really pays attention to it. But the rate of men who are being abused physically by women is on a high. I may not really mention the actual number, but from the experience and encounters that I've come across, I'm quite sure and I'm quite confident that there's a lot of men out there who are suffering this instance of being physically abused. And that goes from just that not just only marriages, it also just expands to relationships. And as they say that no man, when a woman beats you, you know, she's soft, you don't have to beat her back, whatever, fair enough. But now the question is, why would a woman feel they've got the power to raise their hand to a man? That's where now this rights issue comes into perspective for me to say, why do women feel that they have the right to raise the hand, and then a man doesn't have a right to raise the hand? And because, by the way, the man is stronger than a woman, and a woman is perceived to be of a lesser strength, not that she's weak. So in that way, men are not supposed to raise hands, but women can raise hands as often as they please. So I'm not condoning the fact that some men, they are violent, and not in nature, but they are violent based on the bottling up of many underlying factors that have affected them. Because I'm looking at sometimes some men who are a certain behavior, it's because they have seen that behavior happening in front of them, meaning to say they have seen it being done by their elder, who is either a father or an uncle or a brother who's doing that kind of behavior to their partners. And then they would think that this is the best way of being able to, when you want to put a point across, you have to be violent. When you want to state your point, you have to be violent. Then they grow up with that without really having much information or ways of dealing with the psychological side of understanding that when they do that, what are the detriments or the side effects of them behaving so. So with that being said, on my side, I'm just going to touch on those two, the emotional and physical abuse, as part of saying, what are our rights as men in that aspect? Do we men have rights in this instant? I'm going to now turn the table and throw the mic back at you guys. Your turn. Anyone can shoot. Okay, was I talking to myself?
Gogo, we were listening, you were not talking to yourself.
Yes,
we are here. In any case, let me just go ahead. I was hesitant to start, but in any case, I'll just go. It's the issue of rights for me. The way I have been able to talk about rights in whatever platforms that I've encountered rights being spoken about, there is always this yawning gap that there is, first between the rights of, for instance, the rights of men, but also a gap between the rights in terms of race, or between races, and also rights in terms of you know, tribes, as in, you know, the racial and the tribal, which usually are never really spoken about. And then to try and raise the issue of rights when it comes to the weaker vessels, if I have to use the term weaker as in the softness and, you know, referring to women and children, but never really looking at the issue of responsibilities and accountability. And also the other key issue when you look at the rights is the issue of you know, the moral and ethics that has the way that space of morals and ethics, the way it has been eroded, it has failed to contribute to the writing of the law in terms of constitutions, because people are literally struggling to define what ethics are, to define what morals are. If the moment you speak of morals, most people, they just switch off. They've got a certain perception or a certain mindset when it comes to the word morals, but yet we forget to realize that those particular terms are the ones that contribute towards the writing up of a law that we then call rights. So there is a big problem when it comes to just the expression of the term rights, because at the end of the day, you are really like, you don't know what it means to say you've got rights. If I have to apply it, I would say, look at a man who's here in South Africa, is a non-national, is working in a white office with a white female boss. There are a number of layers that a man will have to be subjected to, and you will see how the system is literally failing them at each and every layer, from the societal, in the family, in the workspace, and all that is piling to one individual. And at the time they then react, we see the reaction in terms of physicality, because I mean, a man is physical. When they express themselves, then they are only interpreted, they only get the media space at the time when they are reacting in an action way, because that's what a man does, you know. So for me, if you look at that profile, it already shows you that there is a lot that a man is actually put under. I'll give you another problem area. We always like to look at a man as a brother, as a father, and as an uncle. But we always forget to look at a man as a child.
You said we look at a man as a brother, father, and
and an uncle. But we never really take time to look at to look at a man as a child. And remember, if we are to look at our South African environment, 80% of children are raised by single mothers. So the exposure that they grow up under is the one that builds them up to be the kind of men that we have today in the society. So then if we are to profile that time and try and zoom into what they were exposed as a child, you will discover that the system and the society is failing the men from the very first day of their being born.
Sure.
So, because seriously speaking, we always talk about a man in the streets, or a man having shot a woman, or a man having done this. But when do we get to talk about a man as a child in the family being left alone by a single mother who goes out in the middle of the night and does whatever she wants and comes back with whoever she wants and does whatever she wants? in front of this little boy. Do we ever take time to actually look into that and really try and address that and really try and do something about it? Because most of these things that happen later in his life are a play out of whatever he was exposed as a child in his childhood.
Exactly. So now that takes us back to child's trauma, but from a man who has child traumas that he didn't deal with, or that he happened to come across.
Yes. So then from then on, you will realize how the system has literally and intentionally failed the man. Because now, when he comes out and he shows his physicality, they pick him up on that. They don't look into him and look at his wounds and his scars and try and help him or heal him or restore him. But usually, at that time, he's just being written off and taken out of the system, right into the dustbin, and that's where the life of a man ends. As we speak, men are struggling because they really are in the trash bin, because the system has written them off. It actually didn't start today. It actually didn't start now when they are abusing, but it started long back. And that's how they've been left out from everything that happens. For what reason, I am not really quite sure. Maybe I might have 1 or 2 pointers here and there, yes, but there are layers to this thing. We cannot just look at it from only a single facet, but there are layers to it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was deep. Thank you for that. I would like to get another perspective from an elder amongst us. Joel, what is your view about our topic today? What has been said so far from Kenya?
The topic is so good that a man healthy. You know, in Kenya, a man is the head of the family. A man has to do any course. Here in Kenya, everything is to men. You know, healthy of a man is right group with health issues versus by men. The shorter lifespan compared to women clearly as evidence of discrimination and oppressions. You know, they claim that feminism has led to women health issues being privileged to the extent of men. The highlight contained the disparity in receiving and funding breast cancer research than the prostate cancer from men. Most biomedically and clinical research has been based on assuming that a male can serve a reproductive or species that medical has to be biased against the female remain that norm in medicine, that you know, home or family that pushing women closer to men so that they make the probability leading causes of trauma, deaths that women at all age. You know, this has been researched that the Office of Men Health alone is not as critics than of women, which is wrong. You know, women and male life expected gap is primarily due to higher mortality rate among specific subpopulation of men. They therefore state that the social program should be narrowly targeted to those of subpopulation as of the men as well. The homeless men is in incarceration that believe that men receive harsher treatment of women in criminal justice. the system around the world that they cite this population number of men in prison as evidence of this may be rape, maybe something like defilement. According to this conviction, is men being put to conflict than women, and yet women also has to be concurred together and being put to prison together because they want themselves and they expose themselves that even when you see the priest, let me, I don't want to go inside, but you know, women also expose themselves too much that men can lie, but you make the magistrate or churches putting life imprisonment to men. When you go to prison, you met men is more than women who are being in prison. Let me not say too much because I know I may be hearing if I talk too much. That is the way. So, Doctor, just continue. You know, it is emotional for blaming men for feminists. That is how men should go and be narrowly not to be targeted to do that. So, Doctor, I don't want to go irrelevant for or dilute what the foreman that doc there. I'm okay with this. It is so good that you elaborate, Doctor, so quickly that I get even encouraged to talk. So that is very good.
Thank you so much, Joel. I just want to, apparently Richard has raised a hand. Yes, Richard, you can shoot.
Kamaku Gogo.
Kamaku.
I heard you spoke about the emotional abuse that we are experiencing in relationships, in our homes and whatsoever, but this is the very, very, very serious issue that we need to talk about because, you know, we as men, when we talk about men's rights, these are the things that actually are causing a lot of men to bottle up things and then they end up raising their hands, which you are right, because now if you check, this thing comes from people who, I mean, let me put it like this, come from partners who earn a lot of money, and then they think they can overpower our rights to say, no, just because of you earn little, you don't have the rights to say this, you don't have a say to this, you understand? It's a very serious issue. I don't know how can we handle this, because now you find it's me and my partner. When we started, I was earning a higher salary than hers. Then, you know, nowadays they're talking about women empowerment. They want to fast track them in everything, in all industries, whether it's private or public sector. That's what they do. So when she gets the promotion and everything, she forgets where we come from, what we used to do together, how we used to plan and everything, the respect that she had for a man. Then after that, and then when she start earning higher salary, and then she doesn't have respect for you, and then they start what is it, emotionally abusive. Then, like in such cases, I remember there was one case where a guy was emotionally and physically abused. The guy went to the police station to report a case. What they said to him was, I mean, they laughed at him and said, no, that cannot be a man up. And he with bruises, they laughed and said, were you beaten by a woman? And it was very painful and shocking, like to for me, for that story, I didn't know how to help the person, and I didn't know what to do. If our police officers are also failing us when it comes to these kinds of cases, you understand? Like, where is our rights as men?
Mm.
And in some cases, you find out that you go to the therapist, and then when you get there, like when they address the issues, they most of the time, I'll say they judge men. They don't look at the story, analyze it, and say, no, lady, here you were wrong. This is how you're supposed to do things. Like, I feel like we don't have rights in this world. And we need to find a way of voicing out our rights so that everyone can hear us and understand where we come from. You know, the abuse from the family, it starts from the family and also on the streets. You know, when you are from a poor background, it's a problem because now everyone will come and step on top of your head. You understand? And that thing, when you grow with that hatred, then it becomes a problem. Yes. Now, well, I'll just stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Richard. You've said a mouthful. As you can see me looking down now and then, I'm taking notes of everything because I'm looking at just compiling, I would say, putting up together minutes for our next session so that we know where we're coming from, you know. I can see that Mncedisi has got his hand up, but before he says something, before I give him an opportunity, I really acknowledge what Baba Joel has said in terms of from the elderly perspective, and looking at the fact that he's from a different country. Because for me, when I look into this thing, this issue about men's rights was to say it's a global problem. It's not only in South Africa, it's not only in Zimbabwe or Botswana, you name it, but it's affecting all of us globally as men within the sphere of our rights per se. And it's clear that it's a global problem whereby men really don't have much of authority or rights in this case. The authority that men has to have, it's being given to say that they have to be providers. As a man, you have to provide. As a man, you have to. So that gets to be like a mandated thing to them, to most men. And I would like just to branch off, just for interest's sake, because now when you have to look at the Bible, the so-called Bible, I think most of these pressures are somehow linked to that, because the Bible emphasizes that a man must provide, a man must. But now on the flip side of the coin, in the African spirituality, we find that our women are the ones that who are more, I would say more powerful, not more powerful per se in the sense of men being weak, but men played major roles in the ruling state. Women played major roles in ruling and leading as a certain, I would say, kingdoms and all that back in the days. And women were the ones that would say that they were then somehow like providers of the women, nurturing and taking care of homes. But now the Bible then came said a woman must submit to a man, not taking away the power I'm not taking away the power that the man has to have. Now, the reason I'm mentioning what the Bible says, it takes me to saying now that has been the one from one generation to the other, where it says a man must provide. If a man does not provide, henceforth the man is useless. You know, henceforth a man, it cannot be respected. Henceforth a man cannot, which I don't believe should be the case. And for me, when I mentioned women being more in the state of nurturing and also providing, that is coming from the fact that you find that when now a woman is feeling as if they are the key providers, then they feel like now they are the ones who are supposed to be head of the family and heading the authority in the relationship. So for me, I'm looking at also in a broader picture to say there's so many references that have been put for us there, whereby this has put so much pressure to men to be made to believe that if they cannot do as expected, then they're considered not to be effective or they are lesser of men. Then it then creates lots of problems. But now my question still stands to say, who then chose that right, that, or where are the men's right in this instant if then such cases or conditions were to be otherwise? What support system do men have? On that note, Mncedisi, you can come in.
Thank you for having touched the issue of the Bible in the religious space. Maybe let me start there, because I am much well versed in that space as well, and maybe bring something refreshing for you, considering what we now have, which has been spoken about so loudly and so negatively about, the term patriarchy.
Yes.
When I first did a research on patriarchy, though of course I didn't really write up anything on it, but the conferences that I attended on patriarchy, I actually failed to get an understanding of what patriarchy is. Other than that, it simply boils down to a Western Eurocentric mentality of supremacy or white supremacy. And now, because the moment I go into the Bible and try and look at the role of a man in the Bible, I discover a different man from what patriarchy is. But every time when patriarchy is being spoken, the people always tend to point into the Bible. But when we take them into the Bible and try and go and look for patriarchy in the Bible, there is no patriarchy there. It's only claims that there is patriarchy there. I can mention quite a number of ladies that had roles of leadership, civil leadership in the Bible, and who had authority in the Bible. And when I look at that story and look at the African space, the African olden days space, you discover that we had queens that had authority, that ran their kingdoms with so much power and so much authority and so much love. And it's been there, it's been happening. Yet what we have now, it's difficult to either place fully into the religious space, unless if that space is really truly Western and Eurocentric, then it might find some corners to fit. When you come into the African space, it's a different issue altogether, because the structure of the African space is quite different, and it tends to react to certain norms and certain, which is why I will still mention the issue of morals, ethics, and those things. The way we interpret morals and ethics in our own African cultures is quite very different, and it is a way of addressing the problems that we are facing now as men. The challenge is here. our cultures and our tribal rules and customs have not been used as references in writing up the constitutions and the laws of the land that we have at the current moment. So there is a disconnect between the culture and the law that works within a certain space or certain tribe or a certain nation. There's a disconnect there. And usually religion is being pulled in to come and try and fill the gap in there and bring answers. Yet it's not really solving the whole thing, because then it brings a Eurocentric mentality and a Eurocentric mind, and patriarchy then encroaches in, and it actually distorts the whole term, a father, a man, and the head of a family. So having said that, maybe let me go back to my last point where I spoke about the challenges of a young boy, and mention the case that just came out now in the news where a policeman shot a woman. Here we are talking about a man who is an authority by every right. He has authority in the fact that he knows the law, the constitutional law. He also has been given power to be able to mete out corrective measures or corrective actions should there be anyone who deviates from it, because he's a policeman in every right. But we find him now doing such a heinous thing, and we take it at that value when he actually takes his gun out, he shoots whoever that he's shooting, and then he deals with himself as well. Then if we are to look into this whole issue and really dig deep into it, you will discover so much that needs to be sorted first in the very constitution that we uphold, or if in the very laws that we uphold. Because if these laws were working for the sanity of everyone, then a policeman wouldn't have been able to just take a gun and shoot, because he would understand what the law say. Actually, the law would heal him. If I don't know if you get me on that one. If I say the law would heal him, our law is not healing us. Our law is not protecting us. Our law is not exposing us to a better mind or a better lifestyle, but our law is just there to meet and cut off and destroy. For me, that's what it is, because had it been that this law was working, he would have learned from it. He would have had the right morals and the right ways of dealing with the pains and the troubles that he was facing on a daily basis in this relationship before he could become physical. That means one way or the other, our law is not addressing whatever challenges that he's been facing, to the extent that he only saw the only solution to just terminate everything and everyone. And that is a sad reality that we are facing as men. Look at a young boy who has been taken to an initiation school. They just pick him up from the streets. They take him to the mountain. No one ever asks him what he wants. No one ever interrogates him what manhood is about. Even after when he comes from the mountain, he's just left in the streets and he's just told, you are now a man. A man to what? A man for what? A man for whom? And wow. Those issues are never spoken about, because now he's coming from a mountain. He's told, now you are a man. He's 12, 14 years old. You are a man, but he doesn't have any resources around him. He doesn't have any skill. He's failing his metric. The society has this big expectation on him, but he doesn't have anything for it, or he doesn't have anything to hold on it. And what will happen to him? He will fold to pressure, because they expect him to act as a man, but he doesn't have any role model to help him, to mentor him, to build him up. So that I don't know how we got to this space that we are in. It's murky, it's messy, and it's not helping anyone.
Wow, thank you so much, Mncedisi. You've said a mouthful and you've stated facts. So with all this being said, I really have taken lots of notes. Sorry. And with these notes, it will somehow be something that will help us to just not only to recap, but to have a way forward as to when we then meeting on next session to say where are we going and how much of the problems and the issues we still need to deal with, and how best can we be able to address them. So I'm one person who are now moving forward. I'm one person who's very time conscious. We are now at 9 o'clock. I think it has taken us about 45 minutes or to an hour or so for us to have this engagement. And I would like to keep these sessions very short so that we are able to go back to our families and continue with our midnight duties. On that note, I have to mention that we are looking at having the men's retreat, which will happen sometime late in April. The men's retreat will be happening in South Africa. The venue has been identified. We will then confirm the date. What I will then request is that once I have forwarded, we have confirmed the date, I will then share it with RV and other people that I'm linked with. If your contact is RV, and then you can ask more questions from him, then we can start planning towards that, because these weekly sessions are a build up to the men's retreat, so that we can have direction of saying these are our burning issues that we need to deal with, and see how best we can deal with those when we get to that session. I was hoping to have Dr. Emmanuel, who is also a shaman from Ghana, who's also be helping me and doing the retreat together with me. I was hoping that he'll be able to join us so that he can unpack also the concept that comes with the retreat. But then I will then have to just to catch up with him later on. But as for today, I think most of the key things have been mentioned, and I would like to just give a last opportunity for closing statements. RV, do you have anything to say as your closing statement?
I would like to thank you for having this meeting, and I really love the way that you put it in the beginning. I was listening as well. Usually when I'm recording the meeting like this, I like to listen to it again. I would like to thank Mr. Nkhoma for that beautiful intervention, and also our own father and elder from Kenya as well, for that job. I really appreciate your input. I really learned a lot, Mr. Nkhoma, from your input. I am a man also, and I know how it is very difficult today in a society where we men are basically just, the entire system is designed to make especially a black man irrelevant to the black woman, and then so-called emancipate the woman so that we can not feel any sort of responsibility to them. And this is what has happened so far, and it's a really big problem that we are facing. I really am looking forward to the men's retreat and also the other discussions to learn from my fathers here and my elders how to better prepare myself to be a better man for the African race. Thank you, Gogo.
Thank you, RV. Just on that note, now that I'm thinking, remember the classes that that I'm busy with anyway, regards to the Zola Bantu for the children who are above the age of 21. I'm just thinking that maybe I will just incorporate this, the role of a boy child, because at that age is 21, that is where they are still very fragile and to be exposed to the world. We'll see how best I'll see how best I can incorporate that, because I think it would be key to also just add that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Anyone's last words before we say our goodbyes? Anyone who'd like to have last words? You can just unmute yourself and then and shoot.
Tamaku Gogo, Tamaku. Mina, my last words would be, I am wishing and hoping that at some point in time, we will have what maybe I may call, maybe it's happening somewhere, and maybe I'm not aware of it. What we call in men's indaba, where,
okay,
of course, this is another men's indaba, but I am looking for it in such a level where it is at a national level, where there are issues that are really spoken deeply and cases of research that are really brought in to synthesize and help in writing up of laws and in building up of what we call customary systems and laws that will actually help to beef up whatever gaps are there in the constitution, to help and to protect the sanity of men. Those are my parting words. Thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you so much. And Elder Joel?
Thank you very much. I see Ngobeni, Zola, and Mvoko. I appreciate you so much. You make this a topic soon to be lively. I appreciate it. I've never had people like you. You narrate and you protect men. We have been exploited and for so long that this our right is so badly, pathetic, even disappointing. But now I see when you have this topic like this, men should have even work a little from those initiation and those other things which is being made men to be behind, being pa and pa. This is should awake people that women also add something that men to not to, or to make the men go to bind pa. Also, women should also go behind pa because they have so. So Mvoko, you tell me, and you educate me today that I make myself enlightened. Even I mean that I don't know anything else that a man can do. So now, Mvoko, thank you. I say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Richard, do you have your last closing statement before we say our goodbyes? Or is there anything you wish to say? And my battery is low. Just realized now. Okay. I think there's nothing much from Richard. I would like to say thank you so much for being a part of us in this discussion. I will definitely keep you posted on the next session, maybe in the next 2 weeks as a build up to our retreat. Thank you for always being there, RV, to assist, and may you all have a lovely night. Ngobeni.
Yeah, we have put Dr. Mvoko's YouTube page on the chat. Please go and subscribe, and also this video will be available in a few hours, and share as well. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. You said the YouTube thing, you said they must subscribe there.
Yes, I've put the link on the chat here. They can click on it and then go to the and subscribe to the channel and also share.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay then. Thank you then. Keep well and good night.
Right.